I'd start with Chekhov.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Do you want to know who Austin said?
Who?
Tennessee Williams.
Tennessee Williams. Well,
Yeah.
that's a great one.
Yeah,
That's
I figured.
Dane.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry. No, I was just going to say, Tennessee Williams was the first playwright that somebody apart from Shakespeare. Tennessee Williams was the first playwright to sort of make the poetry of ordinary people. He was able to dramatize poetry. I think contemporary American poetry, but. Anyway.
Yeah, well, that's basically that's basically
Yeah.
what Austin said. You guys are on the
Yeah.
same page there, literally.
Yeah.
So, you can believe it or not, time is just about up for this go round. Frank Wood, actor extraordinaire, and really, it sounds to me like a good citizen and a socially conscious individual, and it's a pleasure. A bit of hope, a little direction as to how they can keep it going, and maybe, enjoy their work.
Well, some of the work that I've enjoyed the most has been the work that happened before Sideman, which was itself, which did change my life. But the work that I did, for example, with an organization called East Coast Artists, was made up almost entirely of people from NYU, people I'd worked with or been classmates with, and I fell in with them after a period of, I came back. I'd been at a regional theater for a couple of years, came back to New York, and the work I did as before the more famous work happened was deeply satisfying, and it was multi-layered, and it was also full of unintended consequences. But it was work I did with friends and with people who were all trying to make work for its own sake. And so make the work you can make. I always went where people wanted me. I didn't spend a lot of time knocking on doors where people may or may not have wanted me. I kind of went where I knew the train a little bit, and then took a few leaps of faith with people I liked, And so East Coast Artists, we did a bunch of plays that I could never imagine doing now, but which had small but deeply appreciative audiences. And so I would say, make the work you want to make, and then hope for the best.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you, Frank.
Well, thank you, Lawrence. It was a real pleasure for me too. I'm grateful that you asked me to do this. It makes me feel good.
Oh, yeah, and me as well. And I want everybody to, again, keep in mind that presently Frank Wood is performing on Broadway at the Vivian Beaumont Theater in The Great Society, portraying Senator Everett Dirksen. It's in previews now until October, I believe, right?
That's right. And it occurred to me that, of course, Everett Dirksen was a lawyer. I just, I realized as we were in mid-conversation, yes, he was indeed a lawyer.
Excellent.
That's what he wanted to do when he retired.
Oh, good. I wasn't totally wrong.
Yeah. No, you were right. Absolutely right. I misunderstood the direction of the question. Yeah.
No, you were wonderful. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for taking time
Thank
out.
you.
I hope we cross paths again. Either way, break a leg.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
chasing rainbows. Why, Kermit the Frog asked us long ago, are there so many songs about rainbows? Maybe the better question is, why are there so many versions of Rainbow Connection? Kermit's original, written by Paul Williams and Kenneth Asher for the 1979 Muppet movie, has spawned, over the decades, version after version after version. The legendary Willie Nelson, the raunchy yet standard-loving Seth MacFarlane, the drag artist Charles Busch, the tragic Karen Carpenter, the jazz singer Jane Monheit, the earnest folky Sarah McLachlan. And that's just the famous or semi-famous singers off the top of my head, and doesn't account for the many amateurs who recorded the song in their bedroom, playing a ukulele perhaps, and with unicorn posters on their walls, and then uploaded it to YouTube, our collective campfire sing-along. Well, why not have all these versions? Everyone sings about rainbows. Remember Al Jolson? No, of course not. Once, back in the beginning of the last century, he was one of the most popular entertainers in the world, and he sang a song about rainbows around his shoulder and a sky blue above. And then he was felled by time and fashion, and now he's canceled forever because his act was based on blackface and racist minstrel tropes. Or how about Leslie Gore's Sunshine, Lollipops, and Rainbows, a sugar rush of a song from 1963 that bouncily lists rainbows among other smile-inducing items. What could be more delightful than standing in the sunshine after the rain, enamored by a rainbow, and sucking on a lollipop? As Leslie knew, night will come, the rainbow will fade, and the lollipop rots your teeth. Judy Garland gave us the gold standard, as it were, in rainbow songs, or rather, Harold Arlen and Yip Harburg did in Over the Rainbow from The Wizard of Oz. That song transcends endless viewings of the movie and the sad story of Judy's life. Dorothy yearns to leave the black and white world of Kansas for a technicolor land elsewhere. If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, she sings before being whisked away to the land of munchkins, witches, and weird companions. Why, oh why can't I? Because you can't. In Dorothy's case, you'll end up back in your own bed, surrounded by your clueless aunt and uncle, a traveling mountebank, and 3 equally weird farmhands. Or, in Judy's case, dead in a rented house in London at 47, after a lifetime of triumph, tragedy, found and lost loves, and drug abuse. I'm Always Chasing Rainbows, a vaudeville song written by Harry Carroll and Joseph McCarthy, and sung by Garland in the 1941 film Ziegfeld Girl, is even more plaintive than her signature tune. In the movie, Judy plays Susan Gallagher, a talented young singer too plain to be a glamorous Ziegfeld Girl, who is coached by her father, Pop Gallagher, an aging and out-of-step vaudevillian played by Charles Winninger. Pop encourages her to sing in a peppy manner that belies the lyrics. In a poignant scene, Judy slows down the melody, disregarding her father's advice, revealing the sadness in the song and discovering the maturity of her own singing voice. I'm always chasing rainbows, waiting to find a little bluebird in vain. Those damn bluebirds, flitting away over rainbows, taunting us with their carefree gaiety, secure in a happiness that eludes farm girls from the Midwest, torch singers of all stripes, and the rest of us sorrowful, searching humans. What's on the other side? Kermit asks. And the answer is dead pets. Dogs and cats and rabbits and hamsters and turtles and maybe lizards and rats cross the Rainbow Bridge when they expire. The Rainbow Bridge, new to me, is the pathway to the beyond for for beloved non-human companions, a sort of river Styx for pets. They take leave of us, and rather than say, going to a farm upstate, why would your beagle enjoy life on a hard-scrabble farm when he spent so many happy hours on your couch, I wonder? They make their way over the bridge to a serene and happy afterlife, presumably filled with bacon treats, belly scratches, slow-moving squirrels, and enticing, all-encompassing scents. The Rainbow Bridge is more for us than for our pets, of course. It's a comfort, and we need all the comfort we can get. I was quite close to a labradoodle named Bella, and I relished the vision of Bella slowly trotting over the bridge, perhaps once looking back and gazing at me in farewell with her sad, wise, brown eyes. Find those bluebirds, Bella.
Loved you all a long, long while. Looked down into a deep, dark well. Called all your names, they
because she did not tell her coach that the powerful spike over the net that came up from the tips of her toes through the breadth of her nose, fiercely executed via shoulder, elbow, and open hand, had tweaked a bit in excess that tendon-tight band.
It's getting too late to tell if it's too soon, and the future's being born right here in this room. Press the button of world peace and wipe out everything but the moon. Ooh. Kankari ongaku shikataganai, like a flower on an eastern block, living from boot here to boot here. That's all the love that some of us know. That's all the love some know. All the death in my house makes it easy to shop online, where the signal is strong and the tech flows like wine. And I know you've traveled far, but you're still where you are. Look out. Kankari ongaku shikataganai. What's the loving I've made to the loving I lack? I showed up at your wedding, hoping you would take me back. 'Cause I was beautiful when you looked at me like that. Look out. Kankari ongaku. Yononaka suimono-sa, like a mummy dead 3,000 years, finally learning to smile. That's all the word that some of us know. That's all the word some know. Well, the older I get, the less I fear anyone I see. And yet all the more I fear humanity. Well, you called me on the phone, but you did. I said, look out. Kankari ongaku shikataganai. Still, there's no more beautiful place than the moonlight on your face.
And there you have it, episode 337 of Troubadours and Raconteurs, with yours truly, E.W. Conundrum Demure. I'd like to thank those folks who made this episode possible. First and foremost, actor and artist extraordinaire Frank Wood, our associate producer and resident essayist, Dr. Michael Pavis, and these musical artists, Django Reinhardt, Stefan Grappelli, Case Lang Veers, Justin Towns Earl, Roxy Music, Kurt Weil, Devendra Banhart, and of course, Terence Blanchard and Branford Marsalis too. Until next week, let's give it a go and try to enjoy this one. Thanks so much for listening.
Hi, this is Rockin' Bob. You're listening to 99.3 WBTV LP.
From the Media Factory in the south end of Burlington, Vermont, this is 99.3 FM WBTVLP Burlington, streaming online at 993WBTV.org.
And this program is made possible in part by Burlington Telecom's Lifeline program, promoting a digitally inclusive community by helping Burlington residents afford the internet and tools they need to reach their full potential. Learn more at burlingtontelecom.com. And here comes another episode of Steam Lab.
Hello and welcome to Steam Lab. We are the Nerdvana of Geektopia. Each week, we will explore topics related to science, technology, engineering, art, and the mathematics. Our mission is to entertain, engage, and educate the Burlington community. Wait, oh, the world!
Hello everyone out there in Burlington land.
Hey.
It's your host, Engineer Phil, and this is Steam Lab, science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. It's October.
Spooky season.
It's spooky time, and across the way from me is Nora,
Hello.
the college student.
Yeah.
I don't really have a good nickname for you.
The
Poor person.
entrepreneur in progress.
That's a good name. I like it. That's great. So last show we had 2 weeks ago was with Rick Pellieri and the amazing folk artist. I'd like to say thank you to Rick again. He has a show before ours. I can't remember the name of it. It's Folk Talk, I think. It's pretty fun stuff. A lot of good stuff going on here at the Media Factory, by the way. A lot of classes. Did you hear about any of the classes?
I haven't. What have we got going on?
Well, let me tell you about it.
Okay.
We got some October events here at the Media Factory because you can hear me on the radio right now. And you might be sitting there thinking to yourself, how can I be on the radio? Exactly. And you can come to the Media Factory and you can do an orientation. Actually, you could probably do one anytime if you just call ahead. But there are factory orientations usually on Saturdays. And then we have video making magic with composition and lighting. iMovie on iPads and iPhones.
Oh, I like iMovie.
Exactly.
Yeah, I use that a lot.
Audio editing with Audacity. That's a lot of A's. Edit Suite certifications, iMovie on computers, Radio Makers Club, virtual reality, intro to screenwriting. And you know what's great about all these classes?
Are they free?
Well, yes, kind of. There's
Okay.
suggested donation
Okay.
of $25.
Okay.
But if you, it's like you, because you don't have any money,
Yeah.
like at all.
No.
Like your wallet's made out of onion.
Yeah.
Every time you
Makes
look at
me
it.
cry when I open it.
You
So,
stole the
yeah.
punchline to my joke. But you're right. You don't have to pay because this is a community-based
Though
thing.
It is suggested.
There's also another cool event. We have a helper tonight, Jude, who's in the she's in the booth. She's going to be helping us out as we talk about our topic. I haven't even told you what it is yet.
Oh, no.
Well, you know what it is, but hang on. I'm going to wait. I'm going to let everybody else wait. There's a local video maker showcase for women and non-binary creators. Watch productions and discuss the creative process with local filmmakers. So phone number here, 802-652-9692. Again, local video maker showcase for women and non-binary creators, 802-652-9692, or learn at MediaFactory.org. Learn at MediaFactory.org to submit your film. So if you're out there and you're listening to this and you say, you know what, I identify with that, and I have something I want to share, and you're part of this community, this is what you got to do. Don't just sit on these ideas, people.
Do them.
Yeah, you got to do them.
Just do it.
I got something else to talk about, too.
Okay.
I'll give you just a little like sample. Salvation Farms Aid. That's all I'm going to say. After the first break, I'll tell you more about it.
So if you want to know about it, I guess you got to stick around,
That's
man.
right. I'll tell you all about it. Now I'm going to tell you what the topic of tonight is.
Of the day.
Yes. So earlier this week, there was the first ever all-female spacewalk.
Wait, what?
That's right. From the International Space Station. 2 women
Yeah.
got into spacesuits and went out and did a spacewalk.
Oh, wow.
In parallel with this,
Yeah.
my second oldest daughter, my middle daughter, Amelia, she's been into space stuff.
Astronauts,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Right. And so she's reading a book on Apollo 13.
Oh, I
And
didn't
so,
know that.
right. And so she said, Dad, would you please talk about Apollo 13 on the radio?
And of course, you love everything about space.
I
and
kinda do.
astronauts, So you were like, of
Well,
course.
sure.
Of course.
Yes. I mean, no doubt about it. That was an easy one. I struggled with it because I was like, gosh, I talk about NASA a lot.
Well, I think it's funny. The last time that I was here on the show, we talked about the shuttles. Or
Yeah. Scoot in. People want to see
sorry,
you.
I can't. I don't know.
That's all right.
But yeah,
Yeah, we can see you now. Good. That's good. You're right. So we're doing more space stuff. So Apollo 13. Do you know anything about Apollo 13?
I don't. I know Apollo 11, but Apollo 13, I don't have much background on.
So obviously Apollo 11 is probably the most famous
Yes.
of the lunar missions. It was the first one to land on the moon. 2 men, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin.
Yeah.
It's good astronaut names.
Yeah.
They got out and walked around, planted a flag, boom, Apollo 11.
Allegedly.
Oh, dude, this happened.
I'm
Okay,
just
for sure.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
It's a small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Right. So Apollo 13, probably the famous phrase from that one is, Houston, we've had a problem.
Oh, that's where that famous.
That's right. Houston,
Line
we've got a
comes from.
problem. Yeah, so I mean, people say that. That's out in the lexicon. So like,
Yeah.
like earlier today I was raking up leaves and some of them spilled on the ground and I could have said, Houston, we've got a problem.
Or it started raining.
Houston, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
It's raining. So the mission objective for Apollo 13, it was the 3rd mission to the moon.
What was the second? Just to.
Apollo 12.
Oh.
And that was led by Pete Conrad.
Okay.
And I forget. And see, this is the thing, though. At this point, Americans had kind of been put to sleep on the moon stuff.
Oh,
We'd
'cause-
already
'cause it
crossed the
had
finish
already-
line.
Yeah, it was already like the race to space and all of that.
And we won.
And yeah, so
So it was over. So people were like, okay, we did it. Yay.
now we can just hang out and chill while we, take our sweet old time. To
Yeah, don't have to
discover
do this anymore.
space.
Right, exactly. Apollo 13 was supposed to land in the Frau Mora Highland area of the moon.
Okay. So that's just a
Just a
specific
spot,
area.
just a spot on the moon that they had surveyed.
Okay.
The problem is, about 55 hours into the flight, an explosion on board forced Apollo 13 to circle around the moon, to use it as a slingshot to come back without landing, and then that area was reassigned to Apollo 14.
Oh, so they didn't even land on the moon.
That's right. Other things happened on this mission. So I'm going to go through some of the mission highlights
Okay.
here.
Okay.
So after just like 5.5 minutes after liftoff, so the guys in the capsule, John Schweigert, Fred Hayes, and Commander James Lovell felt a little vibration. The center engine of the Saturn V S2 stage shut down 2 minutes early, which caused the remaining 4 engines to have to burn an extra 34 seconds longer than planned. And the S4B third stage had to burn 9 seconds longer to put Apollo 13 in orbit. So they thought that was going to be their big problem for the mission. Every mission's got a
big storm coming.
Exactly. Every mission has a hiccup, and they thought, okay, this is the hiccup.
Yeah, it's kind of like, what's the saying? I think Ethan told me the other day was, you have to keep at least one part of your car broken.
I like that.
Because as soon as you repair it, another thing's
going to break.
Wrong.
Oh, that's good to know. We got lots of broken things on all our cars.
But that kind of sounds like that. They
Right.
thought that they were in the clear after that.
There were other things that happened, though. So days before the mission, the backup lunar module pilot, Charles Duke, inadvertently exposed the entire crew to German measles.
Oh,
No.
so they all...
So the command module pilot, Ken Mattingly, had no immunity to measles. And so he had to be replaced by backup command module pilot, Jack Swigert.
Oh, so he didn't go.
Well, Ken Mattingly. So he was originally going to be on the crew. So it was like this mission, just like certain things just happened.
Yeah, it kind of was just a bad luck streak, it seems like.
Well, it was called Apollo 13.
Oh, yeah.
And they launched on Friday the 13th
Oh, my goodness. Let's think about this.
at 1300 hours in the afternoon.
Connects with the whole spooky,
Well, spooky.
October theme. Wow. Oh,
So
goodness.
before the launch, some ground tests indicated the possibility of a poorly insulated supercritical helium tank in the lunar module, or LM, the descent stage. So the flight plan was modified to enter the lunar module 3 hours early in order to obtain an onboard readout of helium tank pressure. So they had stuff that was happening. Okay. So the number 2 oxygen tank, and I even have the serial number right here. It's pretty long. I'm not going to read it. There's some nerd out there that's going like, I know it.
I already know it.
I already know it.
Don't have to tell
Yep.
me.
So this oxygen tank had been previously installed in the service module of Apollo 10, but was removed for modification, and it was damaged in the process. So it was in one command module. I mean, all these different. I mean, they all have interchangeable parts. So the tank was fixed
And put back.
and tested at the factory and installed in the Apollo 13 service module and tested again during the countdown demonstration test on March 16th. The tanks normally are emptied to about half full. The number 1 tank behaved all right, but the number 2 dropped to only 92% of capacity. So gaseous oxygen at 80 pounds per square inch was applied through the vent line to expel the liquid oxygen, but to no avail. An interim discrepancy report was written, and on March 27th, 2 weeks before launch, detanking operations resumed. Number 1, again, emptied normally, but number 2 did not. After a conference with the contractor and NASA personnel, the test director decided to boil off the remaining oxygen in number 2 by using the electrical heater within the tank. The technique worked, but it took 8 hours of 65-volt DC power from the ground. So due to an oversight in replacing an underrated component during a design modification, this turned out to severely damage the internal heating elements of the tank. So they knew.
It was messed up.
They knew something was wrong with this tank.
But they just tried to fix it.
But here's the thing that people don't seem to understand with space flight. Everything that you do
is important.
It's a risk. There's elements of
yeah.
risk. Because that's just kind of what the game is here. Like, how much risk are we willing to take?
Yeah.
And at a certain point, they have to go, okay, yep. Because something, like you said, you just got to make sure one thing's broken on your car.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're just going to have to repair it again anyways. So Apollo 13 was to be the third lunar landing attempt, but the mission was aborted after rupture of service module oxygen tank. Still, it was classified as a successful failure because of the experience gained in rescuing the crew. The mission's spent upper stage successfully impacted on the moon. So they did have some success, and the crew came back alive.
Yeah.
So, and they had a couple of minor surprises in the first 2 days, but generally Apollo 13 was looking like the smoothest flight of the program. At 46 hours and 43 minutes, Joe Kerwin, the capsule communicator, or Capcom on duty, said the spacecraft is in real good shape as far as we're concerned. We're bored to tears down here. It was the last time anyone would mention boredom for a long time. So at 55 hours and 46 minutes, as the crew finished a 49-minute TV broadcast showing how comfortably they lived and worked in weightlessness, Lovell said, "This is the crew of Apollo 13, wishing everybody there a nice evening, and we're just about ready to close out our inspection of Aquarius," which was the name of their command module, "and get back for a pleasant evening in Odyssey. Good night." No, Aquarius was the lunar module, and Odyssey was the command module.
Okay.
They had no idea what was going to happen. So 9 minutes later.
Oh, just 9 minutes later?
Right.
I mean, it's a good thing that it wasn't like broadcasted well. It was.
Well, here's the other thing about the television broadcast. It was supposed to be a live broadcast.
Yeah.
And no one picked it up. So like CBS, NBC, ABC, and there was no cable back then. There was like the 3 TV stations. No one picked up the broadcast. So it was basically just broadcast to NASA. And these guys had no idea.
Wow.
So 9 minutes later, everything's going good. Oxygen tank number 2 blew up, causing the number 1 tank to also fail. The command module's normal supply of electricity, light, and water was lost, and they were about 200,000 miles from Earth. So they were probably at the worst spot that they could be. They were almost to the moon, but not quite. So what could they do? So the message came in the form of a sharp bang and vibration at 9:08 p.m. Swigert saw a warning light and accompanied the bang and said, "Houston, we've had a problem here." Lovell came on and told the ground that it was a main B bus undervolt. So next, the warning lights indicated the loss of 2 of 3 fuel cells, which were the spacecraft's prime source of electricity. With warning lights blinking, 1 oxygen tank appeared to be completely empty, and there were indications that the oxygen in the second tank was rapidly depleting. This is bad news.
Yeah.
This is bad news. Maybe we should take a break.
All right.
I've been doing a lot of talking.
Okay.
What do you think?
Sure, yeah.
What do you think so far?
I think it's interesting. Like, they just had a lot of problems, it seems.
Right.
But, I think, like you said, doing something like that, like going to the moon.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
Especially at the beginning of their, exploration and all of that.
It's dangerous.
They didn't have all of the knowledge on how the technology would work and,
But they got it in a hurry.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk more about Apollo 13 when we come back to Steam Lab. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome back to STEAM Lab. Science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. We are the Nerd Fun of Geektopia. So didn't I tell you I was going to tell you about something?
Yeah.
Do you remember what it was?
It was something Salvation Farm.
Okay,
Something.
close. Yep. I mean, you pretty much got it.
Salvation Farms Aid. Here we go.
Got it. Salvation Farms Aid. So there's a benefit concert that's going to be presented by Vermont Coffee Company, Ben & Jerry's, and WIZN at Arts Ride on Friday, November 1st. Doors open at 7. Music starts at 8. Tickets are $20, and the show is all ages. So all you folks out there that are straight edge, this show would be for you. Inspired by Farm Aid, Salvation Farms Aid features some of your favorite Vermont musicians covering the music of past Farm Aid performers. So Salvation Farms and Arts Riot are proud to feature Marie Clary performing Bonnie Raitt, Bill Mullins Band performing The Kinks, Seth Iacovone performing Neil Young. I hope I say his name right. I think I messed up.
Iacovone?
Iacovone?
Iacovone.
John Fusco and the X-Road Riders performing John Mellencamp, and Blues for Breakfast performing Bob Dylan at the first ever Salvation Farms Aid. For more information and tickets, visit artsriot.com.
Oh, and where is it?
Arts Riot.
Arts Riot.
Arts Riot. So that's what's going on.
All right.
And if I forgot to mention this, did I tell you about this one? The local video maker showcase?
I believe so.
Women and non-binary
Yeah.
creators. Watch productions and discuss the creative process with local filmmakers. Submit your film. If you got something, anything, even if you think it's stupid, it's not. This is how you learn, too. Like, share your stuff. Contact us at 802-652-9692 or learn at mediafactory.org. So, back to Apollo 13. Where were we?
We were talking about they were about
They
200
blew it up.
Yeah, 200,000 miles.
So they had to make a choice. They had to make a decision. Were they going to do an about face and then go right back to Earth? Or were they going to use the moon's gravitational pull as like a slingshot and come back home, and then use the lunar module as like a life raft, which is basically what they did.
Yeah.
That's what they wound up doing. And they did not have a lot of time to think about this. They had 15 minutes of power left in the command module, and they basically had to, the commander, Jim Lovell, and the lunar module pilot, Fred Hayes, had to go through the tunnel, leave Jack Swigert to perform the last chores of the command module. And, the first concern was to determine if there was enough consumables to get home. The lunar module was built only for a 45-hour lifetime, and it needed to be stretched to 90. Oxygen wasn't a problem. The full lunar module descent tank alone would suffice. In addition, there were 2 ascent engine oxygen tanks and 2 backpacks full of oxygen that would never be used on the lunar surface. 2 emergency bottles on top of those packs. Each had 6 or 7 pounds in them. At lunar module jettison just before reentry, they had about 30 pounds of oxygen remaining, more than half of what was available after the explosion. So they had plenty of consumables. But another big concern was the removal of the carbon dioxide in the air.
Yeah.
So what happens when you exhale?
You create
Carbon dioxide. Right. And so what they have, and it's not like on planet Earth where I just exhale and it just kind of like...
goes to the plants and trees and all of that.
Yeah, exactly. What happens in a spacecraft is they have scrubbers that actually takes that out of the
Air.
Right.
Okay.
And in the lunar module, it was designed for 2 people. But now they had 3 people. And so they had to come up with a design to get the right scrubber to work so that they wouldn't pass out.
Oh, goodness.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
But eventually they did get back to Earth safely. I'm kind of scooting to the end because I have different angles that I want to talk about here. Because, most most retellings of Apollo 13's mission focus on what happened and how NASA engineers and technicians worked around the clock to bring the crew home safely. But the other side that's less familiar is what happened to the spacecraft before launch that set the disaster in the first place. And we did touch on that. But to me, that's a little bit more fascinating, because ultimately, in any engineering endeavor, you know, the success or failure happens before anything like actually occurs. Like they knew they had problems beforehand. So we talked about, I'm going through my notes here. Okay. So there are pictures of the damaged service module. Post-accident analysis revealed that oxygen tank 2 had exploded. And the pictures are kind of cool. So you can actually see the side of it. They wound up taking a few pictures, and they use that kind of to get an idea, forensically analyze like what actually happened, and what fuel cells combined, and where the hydrogen was connected. So without their oxygen supply, there was no air and no power. The crew was that's why they were forced to power down the gumdrop shaped command module. They needed to conserve the battery just for Earth re-entry.
Yeah.
So, let's see here. So we're going back, dude. We're going back in time to February of 1966. So 4 years before that, North American Aviation, the contractor behind the Apollo spacecraft, they were awarded a contract to the Beech Aircraft Corporation for the service module's cryogenic gas storage tanks. The oxygen tank Beech developed was a spherical structure with an inner and outer shell and a dome over the top to enclose the paths into and out of the tank. The lines that carried fluids, electrical power, and signals. The space between the shells and the inside dome enclosure was filled with insulation, for obvious reasons. Is this all making sense to you?
Yeah.
You got any questions so far?
So far, no.
Just taking in the information?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're in a science class right now?
Yeah, for someone who doesn't understand it so well.
I got you. Okay. So inside the tanks were two thin cylindrical units. One was a heater tube with heating coils. Okay, so try and picture this in your mind. And two small fans designed to stir the tank's contents and prevent stratification. So in other words, you're in space. We know that there's no gravity. We know it's going to be cold. So you have this fluid that is powering, it's a liquid oxygen, okay? They have to stir it, so they have to have a fan to keep the fluid moving. So they have, as a safety measure, a thermostatic switch on the heating unit opened the tank circuit when its temperature hit 80 degrees Fahrenheit. The other unit inside the tank was a quantity probe used to measure the amount of fluid in the tank. Once the whole thing was assembled, with the tank structure welded together and the inside units bolted in place, it was impossible to see what was going on inside the tank. So you had all this stuff inside like this big tube bean looking thing. All right. I even have a picture for you. Can you kind of see?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, and there are schematics that show the service module's oxygen tank shelf to give you an idea. So the manufacturer of the oxygen tank, and this is, I'm just going to tell you the serial number. It's 10024X-TA0009, began in 1966. Initial tests at Beech uncovered minor flaws. So right away, this tank
was not doing so great.
Yeah, they should have just like chucked it, got another tank, start over again. Like as soon as you got problems, like, but you know, we got to get going, we got to get moving, and you know, we can't just throw everything away. We got to make this stuff work. The tank being disassembled, the heater and fan replaced, and the tank reassembled. Tests resumed, and though there were still a few problems with the tank, it was deemed acceptable and shipped to North American on May 3rd, 1967. It was paired with another oxygen tank. There were two oxygen tanks inside each Apollo spacecraft, and mounted in the oxygen shelf. So in June of 1968, the shelf was installed in Service Module 106. That was the vehicle assigned to the Apollo 10 mission. Okay, so the Apollo 10 mission was the mission before the Apollo 11 mission that went to the moon. Okay. This was an important mission.
Okay.
Apollo 10. They were testing to make sure everything was going to work before they finally
Went all the way.
Went
to
all
the
the way.
moon.
Exactly. So tests of the oxygen tank shelf assembly as part of the service module's entire system revealed no anomalies, but unmanned Apollo missions revealed a flaw in the design of the pumps installed in the tank's domes. So now, first we have a problem with the tank, and we replace everything. Now we're having problems with all the pumps that are installed in the tank. So, you know, when these accidents happen, it's this like daisy chain of events that lead to the actual disaster. So that's my point here. We're trying to give you some background so you understand what actually occurred to make this disaster. It wasn't just like, oh my God, what a shocker.
Freak accident.
Freak accident. No, this was not a freak accident. This was a mistake. And it was a systemic mistake, not like overnight, over years. Like Apollo 13 didn't take off until April of 1970. This was a problem
Way before.
4 years before that, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that much time, but it certainly is enough time to understand that this tank and this pump assembly doesn't work. The flaw was serious enough that all units had to be modified before they could fly. And that was a problem overall with all of the Apollo units. So an updated oxygen shelf was approved to replace a unit in spacecraft 106, meaning the shelf that was in there would have to be removed and modified before it could be installed in another spacecraft. But they should have just thrown it away,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, just gotten a new one. Gotten rid of it.
So the shelf removal happened in October of 1968, and it was a bit of a tricky process. After the necessary wires were disconnected and the bolts holding the shelf in place removed, a fixture suspended from a crane was placed under the shelf, lifting it gently up and out of the spacecraft. But one of the bolts hadn't been removed, and when the tank was lifted, it caught on the bolt. The fixture broke, and the shelf fell about 2 inches, settling back into its installed position. The stray bolt was removed, and a second attempt to remove the tank was successful. Now you've dropped the unit
Yeah.
and smashed it. It's okay. We'll just put it in another future spacecraft.
Ooh, yikes.
And you know what? I mean, 2 inches isn't that far, but no one thought too much of the incident. Engineers calculated the forces associated with a 2-inch drop and determined it was highly unlikely the tank had been damaged when it fell. So this is the thing, though. It's hard to have that 30,000-foot view of all these parts and pieces.
Yeah.
But now, like, once you get a chance to look at this one tank and pump assembly over years, it's clear as day what happened.
Yeah.
You don't need a degree in engineering to understand what occurred. So the engineers determined that it was fine. Only later was the trajectory of the falling tank revised. It's possible that the tank's cap hit the fuel cell shelf installed above the oxygen shelf before bouncing as it settled back into place after the drop. So what that means is that that place where like the fan is and all those coils, it crushed all that stuff. And things could still work, but you couldn't visually inspect it.
Because you couldn't.
Right, and you could have had some exposed wires in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, like oxygen, 100% oxygen and a spark.
That's a
Kaboom.
big fire, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
It's
a
a big
big
problem.
Big kaboom. Thanks for the pictures, by the way. Jude's doing an excellent job. This is great. I'm having fun just looking at the pictures that she's posting for us. It looks dramatic. Look at that. Doesn't that look dramatic?
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, wow, I know. Thanks, Jude. So, wow, where was I? So, a month later, after this shelf was taken out, the spacecraft that the shelf was installed into Module 109 was assigned to Apollo 13. It wasn't until March of 1970, during countdown demonstration tests, because we talked about this, that the problem cropped up with Oxygen Tank 2. Technicians were able to pressure the tank without any problem, but it didn't empty. The difficulty suggested there might be a leak in the path between the fill line and the quantity probe, and that was allowing gaseous oxygen to vent from the tank but prevent the liquid oxygen from escaping. The same anomaly appeared during a second tanking and detanking test. So we already talked about this. So, and of course, nobody wants to be the engineer that says we can't use this spacecraft.
Yeah, and
we can't launch with this thing.
We have to cancel it.
Yeah, we have to replace a major part, or we just because what you have is you have this entire structure. I mean, the Apollo missions, when they launched off of the Saturn V rocket, Saturn V is like as tall as the Empire State Building. There's a lot of money riding on this.
Yeah.
It's a lot of responsibility. And to be stopped by just this one little thing.
Yeah, that's...
You don't want to be...
want to do that.
Right.
Don't want to be the one to...
So the decision was made to launch Apollo 13 with the troublesome oxygen tank. So that compounded problems.
I suppose if you were the one on the Apollo 13, you would want them...
You'd want to know.
Yeah, you'd want them to say, I don't
Let's
think
not
so.
go. Yeah, we're not going to go.
Yeah, but, yeah.
So problems were compounded. So it turned out that Tank 2's heater was a big part of the problem. Tests after Apollo 13 was safely home found that the thermostatic switch on the heating unit failed when the heaters were powered from a 65-volt power supply, the kind technicians at Kennedy have been using when they ran tanking and detanking cycles with the heater running. So the switches were designed and optimized for use with the spacecraft's lower 28-volt power supply. The pre-launch testing at Kennedy had left those safety switches non-operational, with the heater running for hours at a time during detanking tests. It's possible the tank rose to 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Which would damage the tank's insulation in the process and leave wiring susceptible to the short circuit. 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. When we had talked about it earlier, do you remember what the temperature was when the valves would open? 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're way above the acceptable temperature.
Yeah, way too much.
Way too much. So, in reading electrical data gathered and stored by the spacecraft, the review board was able to reconstruct what happened 55 hours and 55 minutes into Apollo 13's mission. Should we take a break?
Sure.
And then do you want to hear what the data shows? Are you sitting on the edge of your seat?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So let's take another little break, and then we're going to come back and talk about what did the data show. everyone in the BTV. Welcome back to STEAM Lab. Science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. This is a combo. Science, technology, engineering for sure. And definitely some math in there. So, what's going on? Where were we? We're talking about Apollo 13, right?
Yes, we were.
And then what else? Where were we at?
We were talking about the data that they showed.
Yeah. So, electrical data gathered and stored by the spacecraft. So, when Jack Swigert initiated the cryostor, the electrical current that traveled into the tank to activate the fan led to a short circuit of the tank's whole electrical system and an arc between wires. In a tank pressurized with supercritical oxygen made of materials that can react chemically with this liquid and with the damaged insulation, the arc caused combustion, which quickly propagated with explosive power. Tank 2 was destroyed, taking enough vital parts of Tank 1 with it, making it impossible for Apollo 13 to complete its mission, and basically making the command module unusable at that point. This incident was officially chalked up to an unusual combination of human error throughout the tank's lifetime and a flawed design. I think the design is part of it.
But it was mostly human error.
There's a lot of human error.
Yeah.
I mean, the design, I think that you need to be able to easily be able to see, visually
what's
inspect.
going on, yeah.
Yep. Like that tank, the way that it was designed, I mean, it was basically just like one assembly, everything put together.
Because if you could have seen in it, could they have prevented it?
Oh, sure.
Oh,
I think so. I think if they would have been able to take a look at the fans and be able to go, oh my gosh, we need to replace some parts here, I think the tank probably would have been fine. It was a combination of the tank had problems, the fan and heater assembly had problems. So a handful of fairly significant changes were made to the inner workings of the service module's cryogenic oxygen system in the wake of the Apollo 13 disaster. The fans designed to stir the tanks were deleted, and the quantity gagging probe was switched from an aluminum unit to one made with stainless steel. Because they were trying to save money, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it's all about. You got to save a few bucks. The tank heating units were changed such that 3 separate elements could be operated individually. The thermal switches that had failed on Tank 2 were removed entirely. Finally, all wiring associated with the fans was insulated with magnesium oxide and sheathed with stainless steel. There were changes made to the system as a whole, too. A third cryogenic oxygen tank was installed inside the service module, along with auxiliary battery to provide emergency power. The first revised service module, Spacecraft 110, flew on Apollo 14 in February of 1971. So almost a year later when Apollo 14 flew. And I mean, like, they were a little hesitant to fly another mission.
After what had happened.
But all the changes worked perfectly. There were no significant anomalies with the service module on NASA successful third lunar mission. So all seemed to work out. I got a little bonus fun fact.
All right.
Apollo flight director Jerry Griffin served as a technical consultant on Ron Howard's 1995 movie Apollo 13. I know we can't have this show and not talk about that.
Yeah.
So Griffin told me that Howard added background movement like people rushing around in hallways to increase the feeling of chaos and add to the overall frantic atmosphere, when in reality things were somewhat more orderly. So, but I will say that if you've seen the movie, have you seen the movie?
I don't know.
It's fairly accurate.
Oh, okay.
It's fairly accurate to what actually occurred.
Yeah.
For sure. So, any questions? You got any questions over there?
Not quite, yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think the kind of the angle that I want to take next is the team aspect of things, right? Because, we talked about what occurred technically and the
Yeah.
engineering behind it.
Yeah.
Right.
And how it happened and why.
Right. So, but this was a pretty grim situation.
Yeah.
But it was an impressive feat of ingenuity, teamwork, and engineering that these astronauts landed safely back on Earth.
Yeah. And
They shouldn't have survived.
no.
They really shouldn't have survived.
And they had to make quick decisions.
Oh, they had to. Few people work in the space industry, but there are several valuable lessons that can be learned from studying incidents like this, the Apollo 13 mission. The crew would likely not have made it home without the countless hours of training that went into preparing for the mission, both of the astronauts and the people on the ground. The extensive contingency planning also played a huge role in how quickly NASA was able to react to the situation and make decisions. So yeah, they did mess up.
Yeah.
There's some screw ups. For sure. However, they were able to make decisions and react, and every organization benefits from effective training and having clear, accurate contingency and emergency plans.
So they were prepared enough.
So it was
to do
worthwhile.
something.
Yeah, to learn more about the successful failure. If I had a larger organization, this is something that, I work for the city, but this helps to kind of gain some insight on how to improve, right? So we talked about the cause. So if we were in a classroom, we could look at a cause map and visually format the root cause and what was created in order to get an understanding of what occurred and how it could have been avoided. But now they're in this situation and they have to get these astronauts home, right?
Yeah.
Safe return from a lunar landing was impossible after the service module was damaged, and the mission was aborted within minutes of the explosion. So the goal became to simply
Get it home safely.
That's it, in order to bring the crew home.
Instead of land on the moon.
And they had to overcome so many obstacles in order to do that quickly. So maybe we should take another quick break. What do you think?
All right, sure.
Yeah? Okay, all right. Hang on. I'm gonna find. Don't push me around here. I gotta find some music for us to listen to. There we go. We'll be right back. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to STEAM Lab. Science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. And this week, we're talking about Apollo 13, the successful failure in the NASA lunar program. Nora stepped out for a second, but she'll be back. So let's talk about what's going on here in the Media Factory. All sorts of good stuff happening in October. Good classes to take. So So you might be listening to me right now thinking, I'd like to host a radio show. You can do that if you have an idea. As a matter of fact, say you want to do just like a one-off, just want to do one program, maybe 2 programs. You don't want to host for an entire year or an entire season. Well, there is a program for that, but you got to get in contact with the Media Factory. Call 802-651-9692. Again, the Media Factory, 802-651-9692. They'll set you up with an orientation. You give them a pitch on what the show is that you want to do. Who knows? You might be the next Moth Radio Hour. Other stuff going on, video making with Canon, Edit Suite certification, iMovie, Radio Makers Club, intro to screenwriting, and all of these classes have just a suggested donation of $25. If you can't afford the $25, then the class is free. This is a community-based thing after all. What do you think of that, Nora?
I think that's awesome.
Where'd you go?
I had to take a little break.
Okay, there you go. That's all you need to say. So the other thing that's happening here is a local video maker showcase. Women and non-binary creators watch productions and discuss the creative process with local filmmakers. Once again, call the Media Factory, 802-652-9692. Again, 802-652-9692. Or send an email to learn@mediafactory.org. Once again, learn@mediafactory.org to submit your film.
Your film. Submit your films.
So, right. So we were talking about how they used the lunar module as a lifeboat. And we talked about that earlier, but they had done that during a training simulation. But it wasn't considered a likely scenario.
Oh, so it kind of was.
We're talking about Apollo 13 here. And the team aspect of things. So despite not being part of the original mission plan, the crew was able to shut down the command module completely and move into the lunar module to save the remaining power in the command module for re-entry. The lunar module was intended to sustain 2 people for 1.5 days, and it needed to support 3 people for 4 days.
Ooh, okay,
So it was the limited water supply that was needed for drinking and cooling equipment. Drinking water was restricted to 6 ounces each per day, and astronauts drank.
So, like comparing, how much would that be? How many glasses of water?
Well, 6 ounces. So a can of soda.
A day.
A can of soda is 12 ounces.
Oh, so like a baby cup of water.
Yeah, that's it. That's what you get.
Wow.
But they also had fruit juice.
Okay.
And they ate wet pack food when they ate. In order to stretch power supplies, the power was turned down to the lowest levels possible. Okay. And the temperature inside the lunar module dropped to as low as 4 degrees Celsius.
4 degrees.
Yep. So there's a lot of things. I mean, they had to do this. They had the other issues. They had course corrections. Navigation also presented a significant challenge. Prior to the explosion, a normal mid-course correction had been done. The Apollo 13, they would use their command module, but they couldn't.
Yeah.
So they had to use the lunar module to navigate. And it wasn't really designed to do anything like that. The debris from the explosion made it impossible to sight real stars. A new procedure using the sun as an alignment star had to be quickly created. And then they had to restart the command module before they splashed down in the ocean. So complete power up of the command module had to be done in flight because it had been powered down after the explosion, something that had never been done or intended, and a new procedure had to be quickly and accurately created. And it had to be done to save as much power as possible.
Yeah.
So the challenges listed that I've already discussed that's not an exclusive list of the issues that had to be overcome. Brand new procedures were written in 3 pressure-filled days instead of the normal 3 months. And the astronauts were asked to perform brand new tasks under stress in a difficult environment. So as a team, forget about it.
Yeah. That makes sense why they have to do like so much training beforehand.
Right.
Because if something goes wrong, they have to be very quick, and they have to have the right mindset while it's happening.
Well, they spent hours in the simulator.
Yeah.
Hours working in the simulator to become oriented with what they were doing and with what could possibly happen. And they would practice these ridiculous scenarios
But
that they actually had to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and it's the interesting thing about NASA as an organization is the size and complexity of a large organization like NASA can be both a blessing and a curse. So established organizations often have deep pockets, and they did at the time, and considerable expertise to support their initiatives. But the same gravitational pull that enables successful enterprises is the same situation that can barrier some success. So, for instance, the size of the organization is the same reason that this tank and its problems flew under the radar. In a smaller,
why is that?
well, because how many pieces and parts and people and things did they have to manage?
Yeah, a lot.
So this one tank was like,
no big deal.
yeah, okay,
It's
well,
fine.
you got to move on. We got other things to do. Keep checking stuff off the list.
Yeah.
So, they had deep pockets, and it's a well-run organization, but the size of the organization also led to the problem anyways. So, what'd you think? We're about to wrap up the first hour here.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting that, this problem was so preventable. Because I feel like a lot of the times you think it's just something. Because, they talk about how much work and, like, how precise they have to be. And, like, it sounds like there are a lot of things that happened to this one part. And it was like, it kept just being like, that's fine.
Just kept kicking the can down
And
the
I think
road.
that's interesting because it's like having to make sure everything is like perfect, and that one part went wrong, very wrong. And
Well, it doesn't even have to be perfect.
No, but just like
Workable,
yeah,
like usable.
yeah,
Yeah, no, it's definitely not about perfection. I think it's more about, just arrogance, I guess. Just kind of like, oh, you will, whatever. But it most disasters or accidents and incidents, you can look back at this chain of events and go, with 20/20 vision, with clairvoyance, and go like, I see what actually happened here.
yeah. It goes back to a long time before.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, we only have 1 more minute left. Yeah, but we're going to be on for another hour.
Yes.
I don't know what we're going to talk about next hour.
I don't know. Have you seen the new movie Ad Astra?
Ooh, now we have something to talk about next hour.
Did you see it?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, I saw it. Yeah.
Well, what the heck?
That
I
was
guess
good.
we're going to have to talk about
Okay.
that. But we're in the Media Factory in the south end of Burlington, Vermont, on 99.3 FM WBTV LP Burlington, streaming online at 993WBTV.org. And this program is made possible in part by Burlington Telecom's Lifeline program, promoting a digitally inclusive community by helping Burlington residents afford the internet tools they need to reach their full potential. Learn more at burlingtontelecom.com. Now, we're still going to be on for another hour, but this is the end of the first hour and the live stream on YouTube and VCam. And, I guess next week we're going to talk about spooky movies, and we'll see you next time in the Challenge Zone.
Comrades, this is your captain. It is an honor to speak to you today.